email me in the chat box, or you can comment that on the Facebook page of IYC Philippines. That's facebook.com/IYCPH. So with that being said, I think I will begin with the question of what do I do right now? I actually have many hats. I have a hand in government, I have a hand in the private sector, and I have a hand in different CSOs and NGOs in the Philippines. And based on my experience, the impact of young people in terms of policy making, in terms of governance, is actively growing as years go by. And we're very fortunate now that we have so many new avenues and platforms to forward youth-related initiatives and youth-led movements, especially when it comes to policy development and governance. Now, I think to better characterize this, I can tell you a little bit about my journey towards being able to influence policy making on a national level, at least in terms of government. When I was in nursing school in UP Manila, I was so distraught by the thought of seeing long lines outside the Philippine General Hospital as early as 4, 5, 6 a.m. That was every day. And I thought to myself, why isn't anything happening? Why are things not changing? Why is it that there's still so many people from different parts of the Philippines struggling to get healthcare and wanting to even just have a chance of seeing a health professional? I was so distraught to the point that I tried to find solutions. I tried student government, I tried joining different organizations, etc. And to some extent, I did learn. I learned how to work with different people. I learned how to manage groups. I learned how to lead projects. And that was all part of the learning experience. Because I didn't know that I would need all of those as I ventured out more, out beyond the four walls of the school that I was in then. And eventually, I began working with different CSOs and NGOs. And one of those, of course, fortunately, was the International Youth Council Philippines. I remember the first time that I got in contact with them a couple of years back. I was invited to join a conference at Asian Development Bank. I think it was Alvin who invited me to join them. I was so happy to see that there were so many young people from different corners of the globe who were willing and ready to share their ideas and experiences with regards to how we can push for change, not only within our organizations, but even in terms of how businesses run things and how government actually functions. And lo and behold, that experience allowed me to see that there are so many groups working on different advocacies that mattered to me. And I ended up working with other organizations that focused on tobacco control. And I began working with them to push for the graphic health warnings law, as well as other organizations that really put their focus on mental health. And therefore, we pushed for the Mental Health Act, among many, many others. And what I found was that there is truly strength in numbers. And fortunately for us, young people in the Philippines, and this is based on the latest data of Popcom and PSA, young people in the Philippines compose a massive segment of the Filipino population. With a median age of roughly 23 years old, there's so many young Filipinos right now. And we technically are helping mobilize and run different segments of society. And with that being said, I want to take into consideration something that was brought to my attention just recently. Because I'm also working with different groups that are focusing on voter education. And it's come to my attention that based on the latest data, we are expecting 40 million eligible young people to vote in 2022 elections. I remember a couple of years ago when we were doing something similar for the 2016 elections, we saw a lot of young people really sharing their thoughts and ideas about who should lead us next. Now, given all of these things that have happened, young people have a huge say. 40 million young people. Imagine the impact of that. For context, and this is based on the latest data this morning, we are about 109 million Filipinos. 109 million Filipinos. And imagine the impact of that those 40 million young people can have. We can definitely swing the elections. We can help elect leaders. And we can put those into power, individuals who will champion the causes that we believe in. Whether you're an advocate of climate action, you push for gender awareness and development, such as Alvin. You push for quality education, such as, say, Daniel and Sarah. You focus on partnerships and collaborations, not only here, but even within the international community, like Neil, and different other leaders. You have control. And just taking it back a notch, I noted that it is very difficult to push for change alone. One of the biggest pitfalls of young leaders is to think that they alone can change society, that they alone can move mountains, and that they alone can make a difference. To some extent, it is true. It is. Because you have to begin with yourself. But in order to really have an impact in terms of policy, in terms of governance, you do not work alone. Because the first thing that you have to put into your psyche is this: you cannot do everything by yourself. And you are not the expert on every little bit. That's why you need the help of others. Those who are specialized in their field, those that have groups, networks, and partners can help push for the change that you wanted. That's why what I found to be very effective in terms of young people being involved in national governance is, first and foremost, I'll tackle each sphere right now because I love talking about tri-sector collaboration. So that's government, that's the private sector, or maybe even the business sector, and of course our CSOs and NGOs. So let me start from where it all began for me, CSOs and NGOs. What I found to be very effective was being able to gather different organizations, all working in different parts of the country, or probably focusing on different groups and sectors, and able to find a common ground, gather them to talk about an issue that's important to all of you. And that's why there were coalitions such as for Mental Health Coalition, there are groups such as the Syntax Coalition, among many others. And these coalitions amplify the message very well. And of course, who typically would be at the forefront of these campaigns? Young people. Because at the end of the day, Filipinos are so in love with online communication, with social media. Again, we are still the reigning, defending capital of social media worldwide, right? And interestingly enough, again, I love bringing this up in my talks. Typically, I would highlight the fact that we still hold the record for the most number of tweets with 36 plus million tweets. Hashtag Aldab80 Tamang Panahon from way, way back. And who made that trend? Young people, right? Imagine if young people can channel that towards policies that matter to you. Probably pushing for more awareness about teenage pregnancy, which is a critical issue right now. Probably more access to vaccinations, or probably education. How difficult it is for you who is currently adapting to quote unquote the new normal, adjusting to classes, more lessons, not seeing your friends or teachers. And you can actually begin by joining organizations. You can begin by joining CSOs, NGOs. If you want, you can join the International Youth Council Pilipinas. IOIC Pilipinas has been very active and has been at the forefront of different advocacies over the past few years, and now is trying to help teach young people about policy development and youth in policy and governance. And you may opt to take us up on that offer, and hopefully we'll be able to guide you to it. Now, let's move on to the private sector, which I am also a part of. How do we influence national policy? Well, similarly, we love working in coalitions. That's why you have the likes of the Present Coalition, among many, many others, pushing for support for startups, pushing for support for social enterprises, all of which are typically run by young people. And I know Neil is also a young entrepreneur, and he can probably tell you a little bit more about it. But right now, we need to boost the support for young people when it comes to their endeavors in the social entrepreneurship space. Why? Because we need young people to help push for changes in the policies within the business sector. By being involved in the private sector, for example, you create your own startup, you will be exposed to the difficulties and challenges when it comes to starting a business. And that in itself, by coalescing with others who are experiencing the same thing, you can tell your legislators, you can tell those in power that there are changes that need to be implemented in order for you to actually grow as a business, a socially responsible business, a sustainable business. There are caveats for that because it is so difficult to grow a business when you are fighting titans of industry, when you are fighting those who have millions of pesos in the bank, who have large war chests. And here you are, a young entrepreneur wanting to change national policy, national governance when it comes to the rules that affect business and the economy. Which brings me to the last sphere, which is government. I was given the rare opportunity to become commissioner of the Commission on Population Development under NEDA. And based on my experience, there are a lot of avenues for young people to participate in government action. How? Of course, very familiar to a lot of our young people, Sangguniang Kabataan, which is under the DILG. But apart from that, you can also coordinate with your local youth development offices or your local youth development councils. And to add to that, you can reach out to different government agencies that have particular groups, funds, and consultations that are being done with young people. And given that I came from the private sector, from business, from civil society, everything that I've learned in my journey, I saw how important it is to bring all of these voices together. And that's why now, as a young person in government, I make it a priority that every consultation must have young people at the forefront. Because I also would like to push changes in the way that government forwards communication. Because it's very difficult for young people to get to know what it is that they can do for government if the channels are blocked. And that's why we need more young people in government. Run in the next elections, accept an appointment, probably work with your local youth development council, volunteer. These avenues will give you a chance to shift the narrative towards making all of these efforts future forward. And we're trying to future-proof the policies that we have by taking into account how they will affect the future generation. Not just now, but the future generation. This is something that I really learned from my time with IYC. Particularly because we were able to bring in different leaders usually with conflicting, converging, or even sometimes rift level worthy of ideologies. And that's good because here's something that I also want to highlight. Do not be afraid to be told that you're wrong. Do not be afraid to make a mistake. Do not be afraid to hear other people say that, oh, wait, you're mistaken. Oh, wait, you should learn this. Oh, wait, there's more to that than what you know. Take it, learn from it, and grow using it. Because only when you accept that you can continue to grow, that you do not have all the knowledge in the world, and that the insights of others actually have value. Why? Because it gives you the capability to, especially if you will be given the chance to go into the national scene, to cross party lines, to break barriers, to forward what needs to be done for the betterment of the Filipino people. And this is something that I have seen in my experience on the board of commissioners. Typically, I would sit across different secretaries or their representatives, and they would typically have varying ideas on what we should do next. Because POPCOM is a central coordinating agency. They would argue, they would fight, they would have these long discourses. Maybe we should prioritize education, maybe we should prioritize health, so many things. But at the end of the day, you have to learn to take into account that the viewpoints of others matter. And maybe there is a way for you to integrate what matters to them into the bigger solution that you are creating. And that is something that I believe IYC Filipinas can help you with, because as the youth-focused, youth-centered, youth-led organization that focus on policy development and governance in terms of youth action, I think IYC might be able to help you teach others, apart of course from learning, teach others on how you can break barriers and remove the limits that are typically associated with political colors, organizational divides, regional distances, and yes, you will hear in just a little bit, even varieties in cultures, more so when it comes to the international sphere. I also work with international groups such as Restless Development, and I can tell you for a fact that there are so many young people who are experiencing the same struggles that we are going through and are coming up with their own versions of solutions. And maybe we can learn from them. And I think there would be no better person to talk about that than the one who's going to come after me, my dear friend, Neil. And for sure, as a immediate chairperson, past chairperson of the UN Youth Advisory Board, which, by the way, was lobbied and pushed for by the International Youth Council in Filipinas, I'm quite sure that he has loads to tell you on what nuances there are when it comes to talking about Filipinos and the international community, and even reaching out to sectors. Yes, he'll probably tell you about it later. The different sectors that we should put a focus on when it comes to creating policies that affect not only us now, but everyone else in the future. So I'll keep this short and sweet. Thank you very much. And I hope that we'll have the opportunity to talk with each other again in our future.